What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell.
Hello, and welcome to IFLC. Viewers new and old, hopefully, or existing, I should say, not old. I've got a very special guest here with me today. So Judah and Robo are off busy doing other things, but thankfully I have Glynis, one of the moderators from our Facebook pages. Glynis, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? What would you like to say?
Hello, world. I'm Glynis. You may know me from all of the groups. I'm in all of them. Um, and oh, what? I'm a big fan of. I love Jessica Cruz. You've probably seen me posting her stuff over in DC, over in Marvel. I love Glob. I'm really trying to get Glob a fan base. But no, I love comics. I love nerdy stuff. I love being here with you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. We have a pretty exciting topic to talk about today. Unfortunately, as I was saying to you before we started recording, it's not a hugely extensive topic in comics just yet, but that's part of the reason that I wanted you on this episode. So, Glynis, you're they them pronouns, and you identify as non-binary. That's right. Right? Just want to
Yeah.
double check. Yep.
Yeah.
So, how did you make that discovery? How did you find that out about yourself?
Um, I'm gonna just go ahead and blame Gen Z actually, because
Nice.
like
I like to blame
I'm
them
in
for
my
everything too.
30s, right there. I love Gen Z. Shout out to anyone Gen Z. You're doing so much better than we did. Um, I had always been involved like from being my parents were very pro gay and lesbian rights, so like that was always a part of my life. And in high school, I was president of the Gay Lesbian Association for a
Cool.
while, and I went through like I was questioning pretty much all through high school. Like, maybe I'm a lesbian. For me, it really was a phase, the lesbian thing. Uh, yeah, because I didn't nothing fit. I landed on bisexual and then kind of stuck with that for a long time.
Mm,
Um, but like that, it was never really about who I was attracted to. That wasn't what I was searching for. And then through the internet and characters in comics and on TV and just memes, I'm learning about
yes.
myself through memes.
Amazing.
But
We
like,
all learn something about
I
ourselves through memes, right? that's
like
that's the art.
don't discount memes, man.
Yeah, that's it.
And then
It's
I'm like, I think everyone else, just like, what are these words I'm hearing? So I
yeah,
look it up and like, well, wait, this is it. And it was kind of one of those moments of like, you almost start crying. I mean, I cry all the time, but because I'm like, wait, there's other people who feel this way. And like, this is an
nice.
option. Just like rejecting gender is an option. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fascinating, hey, because I've had um well, firstly, like you and I growing up, I don't think non-binary was even a term that we would have heard. It's very relatively new, maybe in the last decade or so, with that whole queer space just like opening up and starting to realize, oh, there's like a whole bunch of different, like even when I was in high school and I was thinking I'm bisexual, I'm actually pan, but that wasn't a term that I'd heard at all when I was growing up as well. So I'm
Right.
curious what you have for do you have any advice for people that are feeling like you were feeling, and how should they research and do some reading and like figure out part of who they are, like how do you do that soul searching and identity searching, do you think?
Oh man, I kind of wish I could have someone answer that question for me. For the best way, like the way I've answered all my problems is by reading.
Yep.
Um, you know, we have to go to the library. That's where all the answers are.
Yes.
Um, because that's the best way to know, like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I think the biggest advice, and like we should be shouting this from the non-binary mountaintops, is like there's no one way to be non-binary. I think we see a lot of thin, white, androgynous people um, that are like, that's who the clothing's made for, that's who gets the ad campaigns.
Hmm.
That must be what non-binary looks like. But non-binary is a beautiful unicorn. It doesn't look like anything.
Amazing. That is a really great description. And it's interesting seeing how like more popular media has kind of started having non-binary characters. I don't know whether this one counts, but in the John Wick 3, I think it is, the adjudicator, I think played by the one that played the girl with the dragon tattoo, potentially. That same actress is playing this like really gender non-conforming character. There's no real pronouns put towards them apart from adjudicator. So it's interesting seeing that, and even in Zoolander with bloody Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah, like that kind of, it's nice to see a little bit more of that in movies. But in comics, we've definitely got a few to talk about. I'm wondering what you think about Desire from Sandman, because it's been a long time since I've read any Sandman, and Desire is kind of like, so there's these personifications, right, of feelings, I guess, or sins, and Desire is the personification of desire itself. So desire is both male and female, because the character represents everything someone might desire. They're called sister brother or sibling by their siblings, and uncle aunt by their nephew Orpheus, and they're a pretty dope character. But that is maybe the earliest I can think of seeing a non-binary character in comics. Actually, I should ask you, Glynis, how did you get into comic books? What was the first comic that you ever read?
I do not remember. I don't remember times that weren't comic books. My mom was a big nerd in every sense of the word.
Love it.
So like I grew up with, like, we had the original Dungeons and Dragons set, that like the first one that Gary Gygax came out with. We had like shelves of Wolverine. She was a Wolverine and X-Men person. So like I don't remember, because like it's just, it's like books for me. Like they've just always been there.
Yeah. I'm the exact same.
I haven't. Okay.
Sorry, I was going to say, Judah asked me what was the first trade I ever bought, and I was like, I don't remember. It's too long ago. I don't know. It's just that memory's gone. But yeah, I was curious to see. X-Men is great, especially for representation. I feel there's a whole lot of different people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to Judah. Actually, is the reason I started Sandman, and I got the first one down. But now I need to get. When does this character show?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, because obviously it's an amazing story, and I think it's being adapted, right? Like I've heard it's being adapted a few times. I don't know whether that's still the case, but it should be made into a TV show on HBO or something. One of the other ones that you mentioned to me that I didn't know about is an asexual character from Green Lantern. So I was looking that up. I think Larvox, Sector 0017. Yep. So first appeared in Green Lantern Volume 2, Issue 9, in the story Battle of the Power Rings, written by John Broome and illustrated by Gil Kane. So Larvox is an asexual being that comes from a planet where all beings are part of the whole and there are no individuals. Larvox can speak and must use its ring to cannot speak and must use its ring to communicate. After the fall of Oa, Larvox becomes a member of the Dark Stars but rejoins the Corps when the Green Lanterns are reformed. And they have a cameo appearance in Green Lantern, the animated series episode Reboot. So that's pretty dope.
That's where I know that character.
Yeah, and Green Lantern in particular, like I think we had this on a live recently. They're introducing like a new color. They seem to be it's a very inclusive series. They've got a whole bunch of different, the same way I feel about X-Men sometimes, although X-Men can be problematic, right? Because you've got like, I don't know, arguably the Professor X Jean Grey relationship is, debatable. It's interesting.
It's had its issues.
It's had its issues, yeah. But like I think any long-running series, because it reflects us as a society, right? And like we were just saying, when you and I were growing up, there were so many terms and stuff that people just had no idea about. And now people are getting more aware and they're starting to like incorporate that into their writing. It's awesome. One of the ones I wanted to ask you about is Doom Patrol, because I've read and seen none of that, but there is a character named Danny that I wanted to ask you about.
Oh, if you could just put a GIF in here of the Kermit flailing, that'd be perfect. Danny's. I'm late to Doom Patrol. The show is what got me into the comics. I will totally admit that. But like Danny's this amazing character that I don't want to spoil or anything for too much, but like this has been out for ages in the comics. And I haven't seen season 2 yet, so I can't spoil season 2 yet. But like Danny is not just, we say Danny in the show as a street. In the Gerard Way comic book, out 2019, he was in, or they was, see, they, everyone,
Everyone does it. Yeah. It's all retraining the
they
brain.
were,
For our viewers,
right?
we were talking about this
Well,
before we started. And like, the thing is, here's something I want to say before you keep going. If you mess up somebody's pronouns, all you have to do is say sorry and correct yourself. In my experience, right? Like, most people will be understanding of you trying to use the right language, but it is a retraining of the brain, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Glynis, but that's how I think people should go about it, is just try your best. If you fuck up, like we all fuck up, try again, right?
yeah, I have yet to meet a single person, myself included, that gets insulted from, because yeah, like everybody messes it up. I mess up, other people, they mess up. I think it's a lot of, so I don't, you know, when you speak French and there's like gendered
Gendered
words,
nouns,
I
yeah.
feel like if you just told someone like, now you have to switch all those. Well, like when
Yeah.
I say the name Danny, I associate that as a man's name. That's what it's always been. So training myself to say they, even for me, like, you know, my entire life, my parents said she.
Yeah.
So undoing that, it's like quitting smoking. It's like, yeah, it's like anything else. It's a muscle, you got to work it.
100%. I'm sorry to interrupt you saying how great Danny is. What are they like as a character?
So yeah, they are a character that feeds on like party energy, people's happiness. So people, the squad, the Doom Patrol in the Gerard Way comics, Danny is an ambulance for them, because they are not, sorry Danny, are not super powered at that point. At Danny's lowest point, they became just a brick. At one point when Danny had lots of power, Danny was a whole theme park.
Wow.
So yeah, it depends on, because people live on Danny or in Danny. So it really depends on, which I think can be such a metaphor.
Yeah, it's like that island in X-Men. What is it?
Krakoa.
Krakoa. Yeah. Similar concept where that's really interesting. So, are they prominently in the first season of the TV show?
Danny features in one episode of the first season, but is kind of replete throughout at least the Gerard Way run of the comic.
Yep.
And I think was a creation, someone in the comments or sure will correct me if I'm wrong, I think was a creation of Grant Morrison, but I could be wrong.
Amazing. Man, I want to take whatever Grant Morrison is taking on a daily basis, because he comes up with some cool shit.
I have such a love-hate relationship with Grant Morrison comics, because like they're always amazing, but sometimes like I just want to read a comic, don't make me think Grant Morrison. But you always have to think.
100%. It's funny. I feel the exact same way. Like, I tend to go for those. Is he Scottish? He's Scottish, right? Those like, I'll have to look it up. I'm pretty sure he's from the UK, but I was saying to the boys at one point, I love the snarky, sarcastic British writers like Kieran Gillen and Grant Morrison, and at the same time, it's kind of exhausting for your brain to read those really intelligent people over and over, because they're like introducing you to these new ideas and concepts which are mind-blowing, but also tiring. 100%.
Sometimes I just want to look at the pretty picture.
That's it. Sometimes I just need brainless. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of brainless, Star Wars. No, I'm joking. So you mentioned, I had a look in this list on Wikipedia, and there is a character that I've never heard of called Elodie, who's a pirate ruler, and is non-binary. But you mentioned to me that Last Shot had a non-binary character as well.
I did. I need to read the Wendig trilogy. I've heard such back and forth stuff about it, but it's a time commitment because it's a trilogy. So I don't know Elodie yet. But yeah, there was a character named Taka in Last Shot, that book was bonkers, and I love it, and everyone should read it. Because you get to see baby Ben Solo, and it's so cute.
What? Does he still have like a big schnoz, and like does he look like?
I imagine it's just like you have to picture it, but yeah, like him like talking to Uncle Lando and like Han being worried about being a good dad is just
God,
It's
that's so
adorable.
sweet. I love that. Man, I know Kylo
Yeah,
gets a lot of hate, but fuck, I love him as a character. He's such a cool bad.
you know what? Any character that sparks that much debate, like you can say what you want about like Professor Snape or yeah, Kylo Ren or any character that you have to keep talking about this much has to be a good character,
Yeah,
at
I
least a
feel
little
like
bit, just because you
discussion's
won't
good.
shut up about it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
do you know how the Star Wars fandom has responded to characters like Taka? Have you seen any feedback or?
In a different group than I'm in, I do a book group. And for the most part, honestly, people seem to not care, which is sometimes the best
Standard.
you can hope for,
Yeah, that's
especially on
it.
the internet.
Nice. That's
Uh,
better than hate, in my opinion.
I think the Star Wars universe is so uniquely positioned in sci-fi in general is because like if you're writing a novel set in Australia or the United States in 2017 or 1950, you're bound by this, like the rules we have set up as a society. But in sci-fi, especially in the Star Wars universe, you're not bound by really anything.
Yeah, you get to like create
Especially
your own
defining gender.
ideals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even in Leia or Holdo in one of the young adult Leia books, excuse me, Holdo is like heavily advocating for and mocking Leia for being so constricting herself to just men and just humans. Because she's like, there's
Amazing.
this galaxy out here of genders and species, and you're gonna just stick with one,
Yeah, that
which
is
like,
bizarre. I'm with
right?
Holdo. Yeah. Like think of all the crazy alien sex you could have. There's got to be like ones like Tali from Mass Effect where it's like, like telepathic connection type thing and like really deep soul shit. Like this is why I
Yeah,
love sci-fi too. The same reason. It's like there's no boundaries.
yeah.
And for
You can dream it, you can do it.
that's exactly right. And like sometimes it helps us think of a better future that we didn't think could exist. Like Star Trek was that for me, where I was like,
Oh,
why do countries exist? Why don't we have a global federation? Why can't we have Starfleet? Like that's where I want us to get to as a species because then we can start fucking aliens, right?
right? That's all I want. I just want to be Captain Jack Harkness out
That's
there in
it.
space.
100%. Oh man. One of the other ones I wanted to bring up with you, speaking of, I guess it's kind of sci-fi. The Wicked and the Divine has a character called Inanna, which is like an incarnation of the Sumerian goddess. And it was formerly a teenager called Zahid who had a tendency to like blend in. And Inanna uses masculine pronouns, but they're definitely non-binary, and that comes through in the story over and over again. Um, Wicked and the Divine is interesting for me because it kind of, yeah, falls into that sci fi category we are just talking about, but it's also heavily influenced by mythology and existing gods and goddesses. And there's definitely examples, if you go back, of like gender non conforming gods and goddesses. And like one of those that's used in comics a lot is Loki, right? Like
Yeah.
Loki has changed genders over and over again in the things that I've read, which is really fascinating. Like, do you think if you could have that power of like switching between a male body and a female body at will, is that something you would use all the time, or like, are you happy with the body that you've got? Like, what do you think about Loki as a character?
I just want to register with whoever is listening. A higher power, I'm extremely unhappy with the body I was given for several reasons.
Trade in. I'd
Uh,
like to claim the warranty, please.
right? No, I was like, if you've ever read it, Ursula Le Guin, who everyone should read some Ursula Le Guin. She's like hard to get into, but it's so worth it.
Mm,
She had a great book called The Left Hand of Darkness, that's set on a planet where the people are genderless, like 3 weeks out of the month, and then once a month, they go through something called Kemer, where you are assigned a gender. Some people tend towards one, some people are 50-50 split. You don't really know which one you're going to get, but for that week, you're like sexually active and you hook up with a partner or whomever you are married to. So like you have this whole planet of pansexual people because there's no other way to be really.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've always thought like that would be my idea. I would like to be kind of like I want the Ken doll 90% of the time. And then if I feel so inclined to be with a partner, I kind of wish I could choose based on that partner.
That's amazing. That's such a cool idea. So like almost asexual for 3 weeks of the month type deal. That's really, so what's the series called again?
Right.
Sorry, what?
It's a really good book. It's called The Left Hand of Darkness.
Ooh, I need to read that. That sounds incredible.
It's fantastic. She's a sci-fi author that is like she's doing big ideas. There's no she does that I have yet to encounter an easy book of hers. But like you will be rewarded by any book of hers that you read.
That's incredible.
I promise.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I mean, you can see my big ass bookcase in the background. Like I'm just constantly reading. And I think that's really good advice that you gave earlier is like, if you want to get any idea of like your identity, your sexuality, your gender, whatever it might be, reading is such a superpower, like for us to have these days, especially with the internet. You can do so much, you can get so many different perspectives from so many different places in the world these days. Use that shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's so many.
There's no excuse for not educating yourself at this point because
That's right.
I mean, like libraries, for me, like libraries, I wish they all had a big neon sign above them that just said like "You are not alone," because like that's what it's sending out is that like, and you can learn other people's experiences. Like if you don't understand why someone would be trans or gay, like great, there are authors who have done that heavy lifting of explaining it for you. Go read their books.
Amazing. Actually, that is so I've got a few popular mainstream characters that I want to end us off on, but one tough question that I have for you before we do that is something that I'm constantly questioned by from usually cis het men is like if gender is a construct, which it is, gender is a social construct, why like how can non-binary and trans people exist? Like how can you be trans if there is no gender, right? And my explanation to them is non-binary is kind of another form of trans where you're rejecting those just because they're social constructs. You know what else is a social construct? Money. Like that's still
exactly.
real. That's still a real thing. As much as we want to like dismantle a lot of those toxic and damaging beliefs, there's still so much of things being gendered that trans is totally valid and non-binary is totally valid. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that as well. I always struggle coming back to that question with an answer that they'll understand.
Yeah, that's the answer that they'll understand. I guess, do you like being told what to do? Think of a time that someone said you have to take off your hat in school. Did you like that? No, because like it's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. So like, it doesn't affect you. If me telling you my gender identity doesn't affect you really. So like, does that make sense? I don't know if it makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I love that sentiment. Yeah, like that's exactly what we want to get to, right? Is like everyone just trying to understand someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to be a cisgender dude, but I'm gonna listen to you and respect what you tell me and believe what you tell me.
You expect the same in return.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you don't have to understand it. There are things I'm probably never gonna understand. But like I don't understand rock climbing. That's the word. But like I really don't. I think that's insane. Why would you ever do that? But like if that's what brings you joy in your life and that's like an aspect of your personality, or like surfers. Oh my God, surfers don't shut up about surfing. But like but that's cool. Like, you do you, man. I may be like coming off as a total stoner, but like can't we all get along, man? Like
no, I feel the exact same way. Like exact same way. Like if your shit isn't harming anybody else, just let them have fun. Like I'm not into sport, but I'm like, you have fun with the sport. Do the things.
I think people are just, you get comfy in tradition. I
Mm-hmm.
think tradition is incredibly seductive.
Yep.
But challenging tradition can be like immensely freeing. Something I actually loved in Doom Patrol, and now you're gonna have to watch it, is the character
Can't
Larry
wait.
Trainer is a gay man from the 1950s, um, in today's society, and he's like trying to come to terms with that, and he's on Danny, in the club, Peeping Tom's Perpetual Cabaret, I believe is the club there,
Wow.
and he has this beautiful dance number, and I love it because everyone's in these flamboyant outfits, and when he sees himself, because he's normally like in bandages, when he sees himself, he's in a tuxedo, and I love that because he's from the 1950s, so flamboyant for him is a tuxedo with a sequin bow tie, but
Amazing.
flamboyant for this other character is, feathers, and that's
Yeah.
the thing, is like, be yourself. If yourself is a three-piece suit, fantastic. If
I love
yourself
that.
is a string bikini with angel wings, great.
Amazing. That's so sweet. See, that reminds me of an experience, just to like quickly tangent. Dakota, who we had on our sex positive episode, I did her makeup once, and she's got a very uh, transphobic home life, so I don't think she can really be herself at home. Um, and just like the look on her face with makeup on, and like seeing how she wanted to present, was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. Like, why would you not want to see that joy in everyone, right? Like, that's just so beautiful,
Oh,
seeing
dude,
someone. Yeah. Um,
it's
sorry, go ahead.
it's I like I have my best friend is transitioning right now, and it's been an interesting friendship because like during our friendship, she's been getting more comfortable in her identity, and I've been getting more like when we met, I was doing kind of my version of drag, going out on the weekends and huge hair and heavy makeup and ridiculous outfits.
Cool.
Because like femininity for me is very much a costume. That is not something I feel comfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
So like I cosplay women. Uh,
I love that. I love that.
and and she was getting more comfortable, like was very fashionable, but like we kind of crossed paths, me going less trying to perform as a woman, and them trying to be comfortable as a woman, and like seeing her fashion journey has been amazing
I love
because
that.
like
I
and
hopefully
just like
I want to see
like
more of that in
sending
comics, right? Like,
right.
I want to see that beginning to end of someone's journey, because at the moment what we've really got is like the
Oh
beginnings of
yeah.
stuff, but we don't really have like that. We haven't really seen in mainstream comics, at least like Marvel and DC. We haven't really seen a trans character that's like evolved with their
Yeah.
fashion, like you've just described, right? That would be so
I,
awesome to see.
I would love to see a character like an X-Man who has like starts out a little baby trans, and like their powers are stunted, and like as they
Oh,
become more comfortable in their identity, their powers actually start to work.
I love that idea. That's so
And
dope.
like
That's rad.
you could facilitate that so well through
Absolutely,
X-Men.
because X-Men is like, to me, this allegory for puberty, right? Because like most of their
Oh yeah.
powers switch on when they are starting to like become adults, and or young
Yeah.
adults, I should say, and all those hormones are going crazy, and like it's so tied to identity and like self-discovery, and it's pretty awesome. I love that idea. We
And
should
like
totally pitch that.
what a statement that would be, to like your powers only fully manifest when you are, yeah, like I think you could make such about like it's because like the thing, oh, it grinds my gears, is like it's a mental disorder. Like you you've never met someone who's trans, have you?
Yeah, that's it,
It's
and
like,
they used to say the same about homosexuality, that it was a disorder, like
right,
like we've pretty
we
much
we
disproven
don't
that shit.
understand it,
Yeah,
so must be
yeah.
a disorder, yeah.
Let's categorize it as something. Yeah. It's that's kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask you too before we start talking about some of these other characters. Is lots of people say that the LGBTQIA is getting too convoluted, inflated with all these different things. I disagree. The thing is like about labels, right? Is like, and you said this as well. With your bisexuality, for you, it was a phase. Like I feel like gender can be fluid and sexuality can be fluid. So like you might start off thinking that you're gay and then figure out that you're pan, and then maybe decide that you not decide, but like it's a journey, you know, like lots of people are fluid, and their experiences change them, and everybody changes. That's the thing too. The only thing constant is change, right? Like we just need to try and be more understanding and accepting of everyone. But that being said, I've got a few that I want to leave people with, a few characters that are from different bits of media. One that I've heard a lot about that is really good for representation is Steven Universe. So that's a cartoon, and it has
started that show, and
is it awesome?
Is like, that's supposed to be a kids show, but you cannot convince me that their specific demographic is not like Glynis's.
Yeah, because
I'm pretty sure you wrote this show for me.
100%. Well, I'm looking at the list of like non-binary and agender characters, and there's just like, for Steven Universe, it's like Sunstone, Smokey, Shep, Rainbow Quartz, Stebony, Obsidian. Like there's a whole bunch. Attack on Titan has a non-binary character. She-Ra has a non-binary character, which is one that Tina Horn, I think, recommended on our Sex Positive episode.
Another one I just started, and it's like, it's the gayest show I've ever seen. I mean that in a great way. I'm 3 seasons in, and I just realized I haven't seen a straight relationship on that show, and that's amazing.
That is incredible. See, that's the thing, like anyone that's like The Last of Us 2, I'm about to go talk to Cypher about, right? And that's getting so much hate in the media at the moment because of having a trans character and having a, you know, lesbian lead and all that stuff. But it's again that thing of like, if it's creating that discussion, which it is, it definitely is, and how is that a bad thing? And it's like making people reevaluate how they look at various characters and how they feel about certain things, because sometimes it's the same with this BLM movement, right? Like some of us have these really deep-seated racist ideas that we don't even realize are there until we start questioning, like you said, the traditions and norms. It's a good thing to always.
I was fortunate enough to be able to go see the great religious scholar Reza Aslan speak like a year or so ago. And he was talking about Islamophobia, and saying that like you can shout statistics and talk, you know, hold up these examples of like, this is a good Muslim or a good Black person or a good trans person, but like the only thing that ultimately will change minds is caring about someone. And I think for a lot of people, they are not likely to meet an out trans person in their lifetime, or it like, for me, like I live in a town where like, unless you're gonna try, you're probably not gonna meet a Black person. We don't have very many. So that's why books and comics and movies are so important, because that, you know, there's probably people out there who are transphobic that love The Last of Us, and they're going to be forced to play a game that has a trans character, and you know what? They might end up loving that character, and that's going to make you reconsider your bigotry. Like all it takes is like one person that you care about to maybe make you rethink things, and like that's fine. Well, and for the record, anyone out there, you can always reconsider.
Yes,
like you're not Kylo Ren, you can come back.
And even like, I mean, arguably, even he came back for a little bit. Like
he did.
If you get new information, you should be able to change your opinions, right? Like you don't have to. People have this fear of being wrong, which is ridiculous. Like the reason how we learn is making mistakes, right?
I'm wrong at least 3 times per day.
Exactly. Like a clock is wrong less than I am, you know, more hours of the day. It's just ridiculous. Like Upgrade is another movie that I meant to mention earlier. So there was Zoolander 2, John Wick 3. Upgrade is this like amazing horror kind of film, and there's a hacker in it that's non-gendered, and they request the protagonist not ask their gender. They state that Jamie is not their name and they don't have a name. So that's a cool idea as well in that movie. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's so fucking good.
I
think
will.
that's James Wan or someone cool. Anyway, Adventure Zone and Welcome to Night Vale podcasts both have non-binary characters, which is awesome. So if you like podcasts, listen to those. And if we're talking live action television, Good Omens has a gender and non-binary.
Yes.
Yep. So Pollution is non-binary. One of the Four Horsemen, I think they replaced.
Well, and the two
Heston?
leads are non-binary as well.
Yes, definitely agender, yeah, for sure. And their relationship is so fucking cute. Like, just do yourself a favor and watch it. It's so cute. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Even just for the fucking costumes alone, right? It's such a good time.
That show it hit every mark.
Yeah. I mean, if you're heavily religious and you don't like the idea of God being a woman, maybe don't watch it. But I mean, if you can take a. Oh, did we just spill?
I dropped all my stuff. It's fine.
Oh no! Is it because I said God was a woman?
Yeah, I freaked out. I couldn't take it.
Theatre-wise, Hedwig and the Angry Inch has a genderqueer Hedwig, obviously, and video games. Borderlands 3 has a non-binary character. Binding of Isaac. Undertale is an amazing. Everyone loves Undertale. Crypt of the Necrodancer, Hollow Knight, and Elder Scrolls. And then there's some web comics that you can check out. So this is all on Wikipedia. Web comics with non-binary characters include Questionable Content, Homestuck, Skin, Never Satisfied, Strong Female Protagonist, Paranatural, and Go Get a Roomie. So if you want to go do some reading, that's our recommendations, I think, for asexual or genderqueer or non-binary characters in comics. Did I miss anything, Glynis? Is there anything you want to bring up that I haven't spoken about? Miles Morales. Kenneth. Yeah, you mentioned that before. So Kenneth
Miles is one of those books that just went off the pull list, but I guess it's going right back on.
So did you say
Kenneth was introduced, I haven't read the specific book, as like a kid who was being bullied. And we know the they, them pronouns were not used in the book they appeared in, but the writer actually confirmed on Twitter to a fan that they would be reappearing later, and then confirmed that yes, they was used specifically.
Amazing.
And actually, that's the same writer for Ms. Marvel. So.
Oh, I love that series. I did not anticipate liking that series as much as I did, because I tried to go for like leading lady type series. So I was reading Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Spider-Gwen, and Miss Marvel is like, it's funny, Judah and I had a heated conversation about this because of what's the massive dog character that they don't let in the house because of their religion?
Lockjaw.
Yeah, Lockjaw. And he was like, just let in Lockjaw, right? Like, he's a sentient being and all that. It was interesting having that conversation. But even just like that representation is fascinating. And I learned so much about that culture I just had no idea about. Like, I don't know anyone that's Muslim. So seeing a family and how they operate was really interesting to me. Like, that's why diversity is so fun, is you get these different stories, right?
Exactly. I don't need to read about, 30-something white people from the Midwest, because I have a pretty good handle on what that's like.
I love that.
Yeah, I want to learn something. I don't want to read the same stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything you'd like to say before we wrap this up? Is there any messages you have for the audience, or any recommendations that I missed?
I'm just gonna kind of echo what I did earlier. Like, if you are feeling, non-binary, genderqueer, I get there's like 150 descriptors you can fall under. Don't feel pressured to fit into a box. I think if there's anything amazing about being queer in general, including everything, all the letters, it's that like you don't have to play by the same rules that we've been following. So just be you. Concentrate on being you. Don't try to be a label.
Very cool. Well said. And thank you so much for being on this episode with me today. It was really, I learned a lot. And you're a really funny, interesting person. If anyone wants to see what Glynis is posting, have a look on our Facebook pages. So IFLC, I Freaking Love Comics on Facebook. We've got a Marvel, DC, Indie, I should say, Valiant page now. We've also got IFLC Presents for like book lovers, and Glynis is very active in there and has some really cool posts. So we're also on like Instagram, Twitter, Discord, Twitch. We've got a website. There's merch if you want to buy merch. We've got a Patreon. So recently we did a sex positivity and kink in comics episode with Tina Horn, who wrote Safe Sex for Image, and Dakota, who's a friend of mine who's a sex worker trans woman. And I really enjoyed this episode and that episode. There's also another LGBT episode that we've done with Ainsley on YouTube. So check out all of that stuff. We've got some really great content everywhere. And thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it.
Please like,
Bye.
subscribe, ring the bell, and be free. Follow our links and watch our show because you want to and not because of the threats. Thank you for watching Judah, Robo, and Rhi. We talk about comics, movies, and TV. Sometimes we have notable guests and sometimes it's just us. But we're also cool.